My friends were planning a trip to Iran earlier this year and were trying to determine how many of us wanted to go. It sounded great. Of course we wanted to go, but there were a lot of serious, compelling reasons not to. For one thing, women in Iran, even tourists, had to be covered from head to toe and had to drop all notions of being strong, independent, or even remotely feminist. Then there was the fact that not too long ago, Americans were equated with the great Satan in Iran, and burning the American flag seemed like a popular way to spend the afternoon there. Even though a new reformist government had taken power in Iran, the country still had no American embassy. A lot of my friends who were considering going on the trip were genuinely scared, and so was I. On the other hand, going to Iran would allow us to get in touch with the roots of our religion, Zoroastrianism, a beautiful religion that flourished under great emperors like Cyrus and Darius. We would get a chance to see the remains of the ancient ceremonial capital, Persepolis, and its stunning set of Persian palaces that were later burned by Alexander. It would be awe-inspiring to see the 1,000-year-old fire that had been kept burning in one of our ancient fire temples in the city of Yazd, a fire that represents the beautiful and universally applicable principles of good thoughts, words, and deeds, and also represents the divine light that guides the soul of every human being. More than anything, I personally wanted to go because I wanted to produce a documentary while we were there and capture images of a country that had closed itself from the rest of the world for the past 20 years. I also wanted to capture the thoughts and feelings of my 33 Zarathustra fellow pilgrims from America, Canada, and Britain. So off we went with our shades, scarves, sunscreen, and an incredible sense of eagerness to walk in the footsteps of our forefathers. After spending 2 busy days in Tehran, we flew to Shiraz and spent a breathtaking day at Persepolis, or Takht-e Jamshid, as the Iranians call it. Persepolis, one of the greatest artistic legacies of the ancient world, was founded by Darius, an Achaemenian king, in 518 BC. He wanted to build a capital in his homeland unique throughout history, and as you can see, he succeeded. Persepolis was completed by Darius' son Xerxes and his son Artaxerxes. The palaces were used by the Achaemenian kings until they were destroyed by Alexander in 334 BC. It was so inspiring to see the depiction of good prevailing over evil, an important concept in Zoroastrianism, which was symbolized in several sculptures of Zoroastrian kings slaying evil beasts. The spirit of our history truly came alive on the ancient stone walls of Persepolis.
The Achaemenians are believed to have been the first of 3 major Persian dynasties to embrace Zoroastrianism. They were followed by the Parthians and Sasanians. Cyrus and Darius, 2 great Achaemenian kings, ruled their empires with compassion, tolerance, and justice. When Cyrus captured Babylon, he released the Jews from captivity and helped them to rebuild the destroyed Temple of Solomon. Darius designed and constructed a canal joining the Red Sea to the Nile River, a precursor to the Suez Canal. During the reign of Darius, the name of Ahura Mazda, the Supreme Being, appeared on several inscriptions. The Parthians were involved in several long wars with the Romans and were excellent archers. They could shoot in one direction while riding away in the opposite direction. This skill was responsible for the English phrase, to fire a Parthian shot. Zoroastrianism, under the Achaemenians and later the Parthians, is credited with introducing the concepts of good and evil, individual judgment, and heaven and hell to the theologies of Judaism and Christianity. During the Sasanian era, the boundaries of the empire were once again expanded to include other countries. Under the Sasanians, Zoroastrianism became the state religion, and the literature of the faith was written down in an alphabet format that did not require oral transmission. Zoroastrians lived and thrived in Iran until the 7th century AD, when the Arab invasion and the spread of Islam forced many of them to leave Iran and move to India and other countries. The Zoroastrians who moved to India are called Parsis.
It was here, while we were in Persepolis, that we had an enlightening and honest discussion about the importance of understanding our history.
Today was an amazing experience. After learning through when I was younger in classes about Persepolis, it's things like this is what really makes history alive and keeps it going.
And it's very important to remember that there are different views of history, and even when we pass our history to our children, we have to remember and remind them that there are different views, because I think it's dangerous when we only look from one angle or one opinion, because we can look at the glorified greatness of the Persian Empire, but then you also have to remember that it was an empire and it did partake in wars just like the Greeks and the Romans did. And I think it's foolish to just use blinders and not see that. And we'll be more enlightened if we do look at the global view from all around, and that happened, and we should be aware of that, and that's very important.
We refer to Cyrus the Great as Cyrus the Great, but I really think that he is someone that history has sort of ignored, because when people wrote about him, it was from a Greco-Roman perspective, and Alexander, of course, was everybody's wonderful golden boy. And I think what Cyrus did was very commendable. He liberated Babylon, and he allowed the Jews to follow their own religion, and there was a lot of egalitarianism under him. Everyone could follow whatever it is that they believed in. And he was really, I would say, the first humanitarian in a time where everyone was sort of operating under the concept of barbarian. If you were Greek, if you were Alexander, Alexander was trained by Aristotle, and essentially, if you did not speak Greek, you were a barbarian. And they looked at us as the Persians as barbarians. And Cyrus, who was a contemporary, did not sort of reciprocate. So he really is a very good role model, and I just want to, give Cyrus the Great a plug.
And I think history is important in the sense that it gives us a picture of our tradition, from where we came from. It lets us know what our forefathers did. So when our grandmothers and grandfathers talk to us, we can have a more clear picture. And as we talk to our children, we can give them a more clearer picture. And today, as we sit, I think we are making history too. Somewhere down the road, people are going to remember our footsteps too.
Zoroastrians are monotheistic. They believe in one God, Ahura Mazda, and his prophet Zarathustra, who spread his message through the Gathas, which are considered to be his own words and are divinely inspired poems. Zarathustra taught that we should use Vahomanna, the good and discerning mind, to search for Asha, truth and righteousness. He taught that we are individually responsible for the choices we make, and that we should choose truth and righteousness for their own sake through our thoughts, words, and actions.
Now that you know a little bit more about our history and theology, come join us on our journey. Firozabad is a Zoroastrian site 75 miles south of Shiraz. It is supposedly one of the oldest Sasanian fire temples and was built between 224 and 242 AD. We had a chance to pray here together as a group. Hearing the sounds of our prayer echo through the ancient structure was a spiritually uplifting experience.
Hashem Vaistavasti, Ustarsti, Usta Amai, Yadashai, Vaistai Hashem.
The next day, we went off to Bishapur, which is 81 miles away from Shiraz. This site is also from the Sasanian era and was built by King Shapur I in 266 AD to establish his new capital. The word Bishapur means the foundation of Shapur. Excavations at this site were carried out by French archaeologists in the 1930s and 1940s. Anahita Debu was also thrilled to find a temple named after her. Actually, it was named after Anahita, the guardian angel of water.
We're here today at the Temple of Anahita, built by King Shapur of the Sasanian dynasty sometime in the 3rd century AD. It was dedicated to Anahita, the goddess of waters. And for me, this is particularly special because my name is Anahita, and it's actually a really unique experience to be here because where I live, nobody knows my name, and people pronounce it very weirdly and don't understand it and want to shorten it to Anna or Anne. And it's kind of neat to be somewhere where there's a temple built to somebody of my name, and everybody knew my name at one time.
After lunch, we walked to another part of Bishapur and saw some intricate rock reliefs depicting King Shapur's victory over the Roman Emperor Valerian in 260 AD. There were also some reliefs depicting the victories of King Bahram, another Sasanian king.
Here we have a stone relief of King Shapur taking the Roman Emperor Valerian captive by the hand, trampling over the body of Gordianus, ex-Roman emperor, and the new Roman Emperor Philippus is seen here kneeling before Shapur asking for forgiveness. Over here we have the Persian soldiers, and on the right we have the Roman captives that have been taken captive by Shapur after the victory. And here we see the angel Nike, the spirit of victory, flying over Shapur, indicating that he has won.
On our last day in the Shiraz area, we really packed things in. We first went to Naqsh Rustam, which means the carvings of Rustam. This site holds the tombs of 4 Achaemenian kings, Darius, Xerxes, Artaxerxes, and Darius II. As our camera person jokingly pointed out, this site is like the Iranian Mount Rushmore. So wait a minute, who is Rustam? Well, we found out that the Rustam in Naqsh Rustam and the Jamshid in Takht-e Jamshid are mythical kings and heroes of Iranian legends. The same rocks that are home to the resting place of the 4 Achaemenian kings were chosen by the Sasanians hundreds of years later as a background for some of the carvings depicting their victories. Was this a coincidence? Not according to historians, who feel that the Sasanians were probably invoking the blessings of their Zoroastrian ancestors, the Achaemenians. We also saw some other historically interesting juxtapositions of early Elamite carvings next to Sasanian carvings that we will share with you.
This is the first relief that was done in this entire rock cliff. As you can see, it's a combination of 2 very different time periods. On the far right, you see a figure which is a depiction of an Elamite, one of the first tribal inhabitants of the Iranian plateau. You can see that the Elamite figure is not nearly as deeply carved as the other figures, which were done about 1,000 years later by the Sasanian king Bahram. It's in fact a bit of a family portrait, with Bahram standing in the middle, surrounded by his brethren.
This is the last of the reliefs, and again, it's a very spectacular one. It's a Sasanian relief, and the first figure you see on the right is that of Aura Mazda, and he is handing one of the Sasanian kings the ring of kingship. The interesting thing about this is that Aura Mazda and the king are equals. In fact, the king is even higher than Aura Mazda. If you look at the Sasanian crown on his head, it's placed a little bit higher. This is just to show the power of the kings and the fact that they took their duties to their people very seriously. Their job was to fight evil, which you can see by the horse trampling the body of evil. So again, this concept of power being passed on from God to man via king is a very important one in the Sasanian period.
In the same area as Naqsh Rustam is a fascinating structure called Kabe-i Zertost, generally believed to be an Achaemenian fire temple and the resting place of the Avesta, our ancient text. It was so inspiring to finally hear something named after Zarathustra, our prophet. We're at a really interesting building right now. This was believed to be the original resting place of the Avesta. Another theory is that it was an ancient fire temple. And the third theory is that it was used to illuminate all the tombs of the Achaemenian kings that we saw earlier. It's also rather interesting because on one of the walls there's Persian engravings, on the other wall there's Greek engravings. So obviously there's been things going on here historically. While we were down here we had a prayer, And Perry, who's a priest, led the prayer, and he's going to tell us a little bit more about it.
What we did is we simply all gathered here at this fire temple, which is a very sacred place for us. We made 2 rows and we stood together, held hands, and we prayed a couple different prayers. Each person individually asked for their own personal happiness or success, or prayed for someone who is sick or departed.
Some of the inscriptions discovered on the outer walls of Kabe-i-Zerthos were the words of King Shapur's high priest Kirder, who proclaimed that he was in the service of the religion of Ahura Mazda and the worship of wisdom, and against demon worship. Once again, the pristine purity of our religion came alive on the ancient stone structures of Iran. Just when I thought I could not soak up any more history, we drove to Pasargade, the tomb of Cyrus the Great, the founder of the Achaemenian Empire. What a modest and simple structure for a man who once ruled the world and ruled it with wisdom and kindness. His vast empire included 10 million Greeks, Assyrians, Babylonians, Egyptians, and Jews, and stretched from the Nile in Egypt and covered Greece, Persia, and the eastern boundaries of India. Cyrus had the foresight and wisdom to let all within his empire practice their own religions and customs.
It's an especially emotional time for me to be here at the tomb of Cyrus the Great, because I think for all Cyruses, we have a special relationship with our name, Cyrus. And here I will read a quote that was supposedly at one time inscribed on his tomb here. It says, "I am Cyrus, king of the world,
great king, mighty king, king of Babylon, king of the land of Sumer and Akkad. The gods who inhabit them, I returned them to their place, and I made their habitation very great forever. I gathered all their peoples and led them back to their abodes."
And a second inscription, which supposedly was above the door, reads, "O man,
whosoever thou art, and whencesoever thou comest, for I know thou wilt come. I am Cyrus, king of the Persians. Grudge me not this little earth that covereth my body."
It was here, in the shadow of the tomb of Cyrus, that we had a discussion about spirituality. We talked about the challenges of praying in a language that we did not understand.
Now when I pray the Avesta words to make me think about my grandparents and my forefathers, and to put me at peace because I really like the sound of the words. But I also look at the English translations because that's what really leads me spiritually, to try and understand what are the words of Zarathustra and what are the words of the Mobeds and the different descendants that came after Zarathustra, and how does that guide me in my daily life?
I say my prayers twice a day and practice, hopefully throughout the day through my actions, good words, good thoughts, and good deeds. I think it's important to pray and to understand what you're praying. It's also important to say it out loud, because there's a lot of significance to the way we say it and the pronunciation of the words that we say, and I truly believe in that. For example, in any space, there's both good and bad, and it's up to us and through the words and the actions that we do to bring out that goodness in ourselves and in other people.
I don't think it's that important to learn the translations, because I think as you get older, you start to be a little bit more curious about what they say yourself. And then when you do actually go out and try and find out the translations on your own, I think it's a bit more meaningful when you actually do research and find something out for yourself.
This is our 5th day in Iran, and it's been a splendid trip so far. We've really learned a lot and seen a lot. The one thing that sort of has been coming up for us girls every single day is the fact that we have to wear these scarves and the long black coats. And coming from a country where we can dress to suit the weather, it's been a little restrictive and annoying, at least from my point of view. And we have 2 people here who have different points of view, and I thought it would be interesting to talk about it a little bit. So, Anaida, why don't we go with you first?
It's been extremely hot here, but just to add to the discomfort itself, there's also an element of really wondering why you're doing this, wondering why do I need to have my head covered when the men don't have to? Is my skin evil? Why can my skin not be shown? feeling resentful of the fact that the men can be comfortable in t-shirts and shorts or jeans. For instance, yesterday we went to a beautiful spot where there was a running spring with this crystal clear water, and there were local men bathing in it in shorts, and we were cloaked fully from head to toe in black, and it really kind of drove the point home that this really is kind of a symbol to me of the fact that women aren't truly free in the society. They can't wear what they choose to.
I feel a little bit differently. While this is very uncomfortable, it makes me appreciate my freedom much more. And I think it's been a good experience to go through this so that we know how it feels. Also, I'm kind of looking at it as a sort of costume, if you will. Just something to put on every day and just experience it for what it is, and then I know that I'm going home where I can dress more freely. I also feel that by wearing my sadra and kasti, that I'm sort of, no matter what I wear on the outside, I know I have that on the inside, and that gives me a sense of security. The only time it really bothered me was in the fire temple. This was really a symbol of not a Zoroastrian symbol. And so in those cases, I took off the garb.
So I'd just like to add that it's one should not impose one's values on other people. So, for example, maybe the women here are very comfortable wearing these clothes, and if that is the case, then fine. But I have to say that the few women that I have talked to have been very honest and said that, under the Shah's regime, that was not the case, and they could dress comfortably in pants and skirts and so forth, and they really don't enjoy doing this. So I feel for them, and I hope that things will change for them very soon. After a marathon overnight bus trip to the east, we entered the province of Kerman. We were dirty, disheveled, and tired, but were cheered up by a hearty breakfast. We spent most of the day at Argebam, an ancient city dating back to Parthian times, 250 BC to 224 AD. This was a huge, sprawling city which had been inhabited for 2,000 years continuously until the 1850s. Our knowledgeable guide showed us layer upon layer of history here, including some of our very own Zoroastrian history.
So this is bazaar which had been roof collapsed down by 115 meter long, 42 shops. Shops has got Sassanid dynasty style. Two places, one for advertising goods, another for main store. Let's see. This is the kind of shop. In order to display their goods, they put on this. Bam has been famous for spice bazaar. Maybe the philosophy of making this citadel is this. From China and India, when spice caravan arrived here, it was good place for protection. They arrive and advertise their goods here. And also, in Islam, when men and women are distinct from each other, when they wanted to arrive to a house, to enter to a house, they should introduce themselves. For this reason, they had two knocking. This is belong to men, this is belong to women. They understood who is knocking the door, according to their sex came and opened the door. Yeah. Men, women. Through your mind is that if Ark is more than 2,000 years old, what has been before Islam this place? No, we are in mosque. This is mosque. Before Islam, according to Professor Arthur Pope, it has been another religious place. Fire temple, yes. These 4 columns belong to that fire temple. Zoroastrian has got 2 fire, holy fire, just preserved by clergies, and another common fire that everybody came and for worshiping something like it. But they didn't worship fire. Fire as a gift from God to human being, they put it alive, So the place of holy fire is over there.
The next day was spent at a fire temple in Kerman, where we met a delightful, multilingual Zoroastrian priest.
Don't marry a sailor. I will tell you why. He will take you to the sea and dance the
Is that right?
No, I am from Bombay.
You're from Bombay. And how long have you been in Kerman?
28 years.
Okay. And what made you come from Bombay to Kerman?
I was doing priest in Bombay, and I will come for business of priest.
Okay. So that's what brought you
Yeah,
here.
yeah.
Okay, so now you pray in the Avesta language.
Yeah, yeah.
And you speak Hindi and
And
Gujarati.
Gujarati, all of us.
And you must have learned
Marathi. Yeah.
Marathi. And you learned Farsi when you got here?
Yeah, yeah.
That's wonderful. Thanks for praying for us today.
I appreciate to see you.
Thank you. Take care. Bye.
God will bless you, all of us.
Later in the day, we visited the town of Zainabad, the site of one of our oldest fires. It was a very humbling experience. We're in the city of Zainabad today. It's a really cute little village with little mud huts. This is a Zoroastrian village in the city of Yazd. And Yazd and Kerman are very important because when the Islamic faith spread and the Arabs took over Iran, these were the two cities where Zoroastrians took their sacred fire and maintained their faith. So we're visiting today, and it's really exciting to be here. And Shania is going to tell us a little bit more about it.
Thanks, Tanaz. This is an extremely special city for me. There is a fire temple, which Tanaz and I are just about to visit, which has a fire that has been burning since 400 AD, which is pretty amazing. There are actually several fires in this province, in this area, that have been burning for many, many centuries. And it's really special to see how many Zoroastris there are in the area.
And one of the theories about why Zoroastrianism flourished here was that, Auramaz's Amesha Spentas were fire, water, and the other elements. And these were elements that Iranians could not take for granted. And therefore, they were manifestations of God's love for them and were taken very seriously. And having traveled in the bus and having, for endless hours, seen the aridity and the dryness of this landscape, which is very beautiful. It's stunningly beautiful, but definitely very arid. One pays attention to this theory and, gives it the credibility that it deserves. And yes, I'm very excited to be here too, and we're off to see our sacred fires. I spent the next 2 days away from the group. My first day started at a lovely little fire temple where I made friends with some local Zoroastris. We're here in the fire temple and we've met some very warm and friendly Zoroastrians. This is Mehnaz, right? And what are your children's names, Mehnaz?
Mehran and Firuze and Mehnaz.
Wonderful. And these are your two neighbors? Yes?
Okay, my neighbors.
Little Firuzi took my breath away when she said her prayers and then translated them immediately. How wonderful that she understood her prayers and had internalized the meaning at such a young age.
پوتوانایی رفتار داکوستان و جان بخش نیکندیسی از آن کسی است که مینوانان را دستگیری نماید.
Very good. Thank you. That was beautiful.
يتراءوا بينهم يتارة شاشاتي حتى بانكيو يزق ملانكيو شيوترانغا أنكش مزاي.
Later in the day, we visited the Towers of Silence and saw the final resting place of some of our Zoroastrian ancestors. So we're in Yazd, very close to two Towers of Silence. Behind me is a little village where once Zoroastrians died, their bodies were brought here and ceremonies were performed. The charum ceremony was performed and other religious prayers were said. And then the bodies were taken up to the Towers of Silence, where we'll be going shortly. My camera person is a Zoroastri from Iran, and I am a Zoroastri from India. And it's interesting that we have two very different views about the Towers of Silence. Growing up as a child in India, we were taught that our bodies were put in these Towers of Silence because we did not want to contaminate the earth. Our souls went to God, vultures ate our flesh, and our bones were then used to fertilize the ground. However, Iranian Zoroastris do not believe this. They believe that in ancient times, Zoroastrians were buried in cemeteries, and this practice of using Towers of Silence only came about when the Islamic religion spread in the Middle East, and there were so many Zoroastrians that were killed on a daily basis that there was not enough time to bury them, and they were brought up to the Tower of Silence. So one is not sure which view is the correct one, but they're both interesting, and I thought I would share them with you. We're halfway up to the Tower of Silence, and as you can see, it's just spectacular up here. I can't help but think that the souls of the people who made it up here were already feeling closer to God. This area right here is where they stopped to wash the bodies, and after doing that, they made their final journey up to the Tower of Silence. What you're looking at is the old Dakma, and this one is called Dakme Kadim, which literally means the old Dakma, and that's how people refer to it. We are at the one opposite it, Dakme Jadim, which is the new one. And of course, new being a relative term, because for the last 100 years, this practice has been abolished. So in the old days, the bodies were brought up by 4 members of a certain class of men, and they were led by not a priest, but someone who said religious prayers and rallied these 4 people to carry the body up this very steep mountain, and also said the last rites for the soul. The body was wrapped in a certain special way so that when it was placed in this circular pit or well, it was easy to release from the cloth that was binding it. The feet faced the bottom, the head faced the top, and the body was left here while the soul made its journey to God. It's believed that after a couple of weeks, perhaps a month or 2, the 4 men would come back up here, clean what needed to be cleaned in the area, and make sure that the bones went down in the central well. So it's not practiced anymore, but I do believe that it is very ecologically sound. And though some people call it barbaric, I feel that it served its purpose when it was practiced. We are beginning to climb down from the Dakma. And just an interesting side note, our camera person's grandfather was buried over here. As we climb down, we can see the old Dakma in the picture, as well as the modern cemetery that Zoroastrians are now using. It's interesting that both these areas are so physically close to each other. Regardless of how one eventually meets God, we feel as Zoroastrians, if you live a life of good thoughts, good words, and good deeds, your soul will eventually meet with our Mazda. After my thought-provoking trip to the Towers of Silence, I was happy to visit a charming little fire temple in the town of Kosamabad. We did manage to find the Atash in Kosamabad. It was quite an adventure because most of these Agyaris or fire temples have good thoughts, good words, good deeds written in Farsi outside. But as you can see by this door, there's really nothing that indicates that it's a fire temple. I guess there is a feeling in these small towns and villages that they like to keep their faith quiet. When we asked one of the people in the town where the temple was, he was very hesitant to tell us until the camera person showed him that he was a Zoroastri and showed pictures of Zoroaster in his wallet, after which things changed. So here we are, and we'll try and maybe go into the compound and speak to a mobed or find someone who'll tell us more about the temple and its history. The elderly caretaker of the fire temple was kind enough to show us around.
So this is a calendar in the outside of the fire temple, and it's interesting because these are pictures and names of Zarthustis who lost their lives during the Iran-Iraq war. And it was a little disturbing for me to see the sheer quantity of people who lost their lives. So here we are, we're in the kitchen of the fire temple at Kosamabad. These are some of the very large vessels that they use during gumbars. They're gumbars, which are essentially large meals or feasts for the needy and the old and the poor, take place about 4 times a year. And basically, it's the concept of charity and doing good that is behind these gumbars. So as you can see, they take it very seriously here by the size of these large pots and pans.
After this, I visited one of our oldest fire temples in Yazd, where a fire had been kept burning continuously for 2,000 years. It was here that I ran into a group of tourists, including a couple who knew my relatives in upstate New York, who were extremely fascinated with our religion and wanted to know everything about it.
We're here in Yazd at the fire temple, and this is the tourist section, and I've met a group of wonderful, friendly women, mostly from all over the world, and we're just chatting a little bit about perhaps Zoroastrianism, perhaps how oppressed we feel by these hijabs and scarves. So did anyone have a question?
I did. Could you tell me about the way women and men pray in the temple?
Certainly. Unlike Islam, we're not separated. Women and men can pray in the same hall. If it's an elderly woman or man, they can sit down and pray. It's different from this side because there's no glass separating us. There's just sort of metallic bars, so you can actually see the fire.
Is there a reason that we cannot, as outsiders, go into the temple?
That's a very good question, and I personally don't agree with the fact that outsiders can't. I feel that one should not stop people from praying, be they Zoroastrian or non-Zoroastrian. But I think maybe just to protect the faith, it's a very, very old religion, sort of like Judaism, and we've had a history of persecution. And, when the Islamic faith spread to Iran, there was a lot of killing and a lot of burning of our temples. And I think in response to that, people have tried to be very quiet about the religion.
Can one be converted to your religion, or must you be born into it?
Again, there's 2 schools of thought on that. I personally belong to the school of thought that says you can be converted, but a lot of traditional Zoroastrians believe that you have to be born a Zoroastrian.
What are the principles of your belief that you find either so soothing or rewarding that keeps you as a practicing faithful?
That's a great question, and one that I've often asked myself because, it's such an old religion, and for it to keep on going, there's got to be something very appealing about it. And basically, it's good thoughts, good words, and good deeds. Humta, hukta, huvarashta. And it's very simple, but, when you try to practice constantly good thoughts, good words, good deeds, it's quite a challenge. And, if you actually pull it off, I think you have the perfect life.
Could you explain to us the significance of fire for Zoroastrians?
Certainly. We are not fire worshippers. That's sort of the misconception. Fire is just a symbol. It's a symbol of purity and light, just like the cross would be a symbol for Catholics. They're not cross worshippers. It's just a symbol of their religion.
Are there a lot of Zoroastrians in America?
Yes, there's several communities all over the United States. There's an umbrella group called FEZANA, which is the Federation of Zoroastrian Associations of North America, and there's about 24 associations.
How, as a Zoroastrian, do you view other religions?
I honestly feel that all religions are just different ways of reaching God. And I think I particularly like Zoroastrianism because I was born into the faith and I've read a little bit more about it. But when I was 18 or 19, I went through this phase of reading up about Buddhism and Catholicism and Judaism. And it's essentially all the same, it's lead a good life, be a good person.
My next 2 visits were to the quaint fire temples in the towns of Cham and Sharifabad, near Yazd. It was very disturbing to see how Zoroastrians were dwindling in numbers in these towns. There is an enormous and ancient tree in the courtyard of the fire temple in Cham. Believers in the power of the tree tie bits of string around it and make wishes. After talking to the caretaker and finding out that there were less than 10 Zarathustris in the village, my wish was that someone would always be there to tend our sacred fire and keep the spirit of Zoroastrianism alive. We are outside the fire temple in Sharifabad. Sharifabad is another little Zoroastrian village. I am happy to have two Zoroastrians with me today. This is Movarid, and her husband is the Mobed of this Agyari. She says that it's been very hard lately. There's about 200 people in this village, and they are very slowly but surely moving out. So it's been hard for her. She's been having to go out and collect wood herself. On my left is Mr. Khosravi, who's a little more upbeat about the whole situation. He says that even though people are moving out, the younger generation is interested in helping out and enjoys the customs and likes learning about the religion. So he seems to think that the religion will stay alive. It could go either way. Of course, I hope it goes Mr. Khosravi's way. The next three sites we visited around Yazd were pirs or shrines: Pir-e Harisht, Pir-e Sabz, and Pir-e Banu. We're here at Pir-e Harish, which is a shrine. There are several of these pirs that dot the Iranian landscape. It's believed that when the Arabs attacked the Sasanians, a lot of the Zoroastrian women ran away and took shelter in the mountains that opened up to protect them. This particular one is called Pir-e Harish. Harish is believed to be the aunt of Yazdagar, the last Sasanian king. These shrines are very popular places. Zoroastrians often come to visit, especially on the yearly anniversary. Also behind me, you can see pictures of Zoroastrians who are deceased, and their family members choose to have their pictures up in the shrine, hoping that they will receive the same shelter and salvation that Harish did. We're in the living quarters of the people who look after Pir-e Harish. To my far right is Vabid, who is the daughter of Dinyar, and Dinyar was an Iranian who has passed this job on to his daughter. So the job goes from generation to generation. To my right is Behram, who is Vabid's brother-in-law, and he's visiting today. He had taken Vabid into the city for a death ceremony, 1 month after a death ceremony, and has brought her back. And to my left is Erach, who also helps look after the shrine. The interesting thing is that it does pass from generation to generation, and with this particular generation, there are no offspring, so one wonders who's going to look after it. They, again, do not speak English, and I don't speak Farsi, but they did communicate that they find their job very fulfilling and have a lot of faith in the pir. Hi, good morning. We're at Pir-e Sabz this morning. We spent the night overnight last night. It was absolutely spectacular. This is one of the other pirs or shrines that dots the Iranian landscape, and Merengues here is going to tell us a little bit more about it.
This is an absolutely amazing place, and the story goes that an escaping Sasanian princess was coming away from the Arab conquest, and she needed shelter, and the mountain opened up and gave her shelter. And I think that because the mountain is so powerful, there's an amazing water source here. Some people say it may be her tears, and it's just given the most amazing greenery here. The views are spectacular, and seeing the stars at night was out of this world.
Pir-e Banu was especially intriguing for all the females in our group. Our mighty, a female, led the prayers, and we had an enlightening discussion about why female Zoroastrians were not allowed to be priests.
The story behind this one is very similar to the others. Apparently, Yazdagar's daughter, he was the last Sasanian king, was running away from the Arabs, and the mountain opened up and gave her shelter and salvation, and therefore this pier was built to honor her. Today was a little bit special because instead of a man leading the prayers, we had Almighty, who's a female, leading the prayers.
I hope we're going to all feel a little bit more at peace and closer together after sharing this moment.
In Zoroastrianism, there are no female priests, and I thought it would be interesting if some of us just got together and talked about it. So I'm going to let Almighty start, and she can tell us a little bit about how it felt to lead the prayers.
I think it felt especially fitting because this site here is dedicated towards a woman, and that a woman should lead the prayers. Also, it shouldn't be a special event when women lead prayers. As a child in religion classes, I was often called upon to lead the whole group as well, and it becomes somewhat of a mystery why we can do that as children and not as adult women as well.
I think I speak for all the women when I say that it was very soothing to hear Almighty pray. It felt like our own voices, and it was very special, so thank you.
I second that. Yes, it felt really good to have a woman say it. And I think our voices resounded so much louder. And while it's a very strong issue and we do not know how far we may go with this, this is a beginning, and we want all women to know that we are here and we're not going to let go.
I think that Zoroastrianism is a special religion for me, and in my opinion, the best religion for me to follow, largely because of the place of women in Zoroastrianism. I have always thought of Zoroastrianism as an extremely egalitarian religion, and I have been raised that way. My mother and my father both share equally in household duties and family finances, and I think that's reflective of Zarathustra's message.
Well, there's a number of things you have to understand. Number one, the priest's duties have always been handed down from father to son through the history of time. Now, there's been some changes to that recently for whatever reasons, but typically the father was a priest, the son was a priest, his son was a priest, and it was handed down that way. And that has carried through all the way to our current times in Bombay. As far as the reason why men are priests, it's not just in our Zoroastrian religion that occurs. That's quite prevalent or common in virtually every major religion, that the men have always been the priest. As far as the Zoroastrian religion, the reasons for that, there are many. We've talked about some of them before, but the status of a woman when she's having her menstruation and her period is an impure time, an impure period. There are other reasons as far as why men have always been the priest and the priestly class in that sense.
I have a question about the purity issue. I guess I'm not sure that it's actually addressed in the Gathas. I mean, it's probably something that was in the later text, the Vendidad. So does that, if Zarathustra himself did not say this, then how do we feel about the fact that women are not allowed to be priests? I personally feel that women should be allowed to be priests, and that menstruation was not scientifically understood in that day and age. Not just by Zoroastrians, by a lot of communities. But now that we know what it's all about, it's a very empowering thing. If women didn't have the ability to menstruate, none of us would be here. So I think that sometimes we need to rethink, paradigms or old ideas.
I agree with Tanaz a great deal. I think that one of the things, in addition to the equality of women, that I treasure about Zoroastrianism is the spirit of inquiry, the fact that Zarathustra always asked us to think for ourselves and find a choice, and I think scientific inquiry is part of that. And we are now, fortunately, farther along on our understanding of the human body, on our understanding of the cosmos, on our understanding of life in general than we were 4,000 years ago, than we were 3,000 years ago, when many of these rules were written. And so I think that in the spirit of Zoroastrianism, it's important to rethink some of our old rules given our new knowledge and our new understanding.
What trip to Iran would be complete without shopping for Persian carpets? As you can see, our Zarathustri bus driver's delightful little daughter had the most fun while we were there. While I was exploring Yazd, my fellow pilgrims organized the initiation ceremony, or Naujot, of 2 Iranian Zoroastrian children.
This is the preparation for the Naujot, washing all the vasans and vessels. Our Mahdi, of course, jumps right in and starts cooking and cutting. This is in the kitchen.
Absolutely wonderful, Terry. You got to see the big tapelas they're cooking.
These are all the ladies waiting inside, making a huge pot of curry. Some things never change. Is there any taking place in the little cutting?
You know your thing has a fog in it. It's scratched. It's okay?
Rashid! Sirus! Shireen! Shahzad.
The Navjoth is the formal initiation of a child into the Zoroastrian faith. The ceremony is comparable to a Christian confirmation or a Jewish bar mitzvah. During the ceremony, a young child pledges to follow the path of Asha, or righteousness. The child does this by memorizing and publicly reciting certain prayers while putting on a sadra, a white cotton sleeveless shirt, and wrapping a kasti, a cord made from wool, 3 times around the waist, symbolizing the practice of good thoughts, good words, and good deeds. The ceremony concludes with the officiating priest welcoming the child into the religion.
Layla's is a little slow. She's using too much soap.
After this, we traveled north to the city of Isfahan. We spent a pensive morning sharing the defining moments of our trip with each other on a mountaintop.
We're almost done with our trip to Iran, and it's been absolutely fantastic. We've seen a lot, we've learned a lot, and today we decided to gather and just share our closing thoughts with one another. And my most momentous or defining moment was when I was in this little fire temple praying with Iranian children, and I heard them say their prayers first in Avesta and then in Farsi, so they were actually understanding what they said. And I thought that was really great because I never had that when I was a kid, and I'm hoping I can pass it on to my kids if and when I have them.
As I'm preparing to leave, just reflecting on the last 2 weeks, this has been the most amazing place I've ever been. And I truly hope that more Zoroastrians can come to Iran and experience the incredible people, the food, the place, the landscape, the mountains. It's absolutely been beyond my wildest dreams.
In the past 2 weeks, I think what was most memorable for me was seeing the ancient Zarathustri sites, which gives you a visual base for your religion. This is the first time that I've really seen the history for myself.
The most important thing I've learned in the past 2 weeks is learning how difficult and different it is to be a Zarathustri in Iran, especially in some of the rural villages like Yazd and Kerman, which you visited. Zarathustris here, especially in those areas, are treated as almost as second-class citizens, and I think that's something that's important for Zarathustris all over the world to know. And hopefully we can all help the Zarathustris that are here and help preserve our sites here, because they are here, but that doesn't mean that they will be here for my children to see when they're of age.
I think it's just been such a fortunate experience for us to be able to travel to this land. I think the highlight for me was probably going to Persepolis and also seeing some of our ancient fire temples and being able to pray in this world for what we did in the past. I think that was a real privilege and an honor, and I'm thrilled to have been part of it.
I think for me there were a few defining moments on this trip, and I think all of them are related to a sense of being connected in one way or another to other people or to the sites or to the earth itself. And I think for me what I'll take back is a sense of deep respect for the people who've survived here for these thousands of years. And when I looked around me in Yazd at the Navjot that we were all a part of, I felt a great sense of respect for the people who stuck it out here. And I felt that, yes, we're all a part of the same community together, and it was wonderful that we could all join together across barriers of time, land, and language to connect again. And I think that's what I'll take back with me.
I am so excited to be here. What I've really learned is the influence that our religion had on the Iranian culture. And it's really inspired me to preserve it. We need to preserve it for our children. We need to educate and just pass it on.
This trip has been very, very memorable. Not only have I walked the footsteps of our forefathers, but I've walked it with a whole bunch of youth here. And it has been a tremendous, tremendous experience walking with them, seeing the religion kindle in them so young. And that's what I see. I see the future right here with me.
There were many magical moments in Iran. It is an immense, intense, and amazing country, very similar to Zoroastrianism, the religion of her womb.